Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 140. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella.
It's been a hot minute since we made an episode. Apologies.
Yeah, look, the rumors are not true. We're both healthy.
Yeah.
We didn't quit.
No, we're not quitting. Why would we quit?
Despite some of our previous threats regarding some of the quality of content out there. We are back. Unfortunately or fortunately, I guess there's lots of ways you can look at this. Life just kind of sometimes gets in the way of a podcast. That's all I can say is that you had a couple trips. I had a couple of trips out of town. Just our schedules just didn't match up.
Yeah.
And hey, here's the good news for the audience. We got a lot to talk about tonight, a lot to go over.
Yeah, shit
happens.
And
what a week to come back, because we have something really exciting to talk about tonight, and that's the new full trailer for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie just came out this week, and
comes out in July. The movie comes out in July.
But we got the full trailer. Was it Monday?
Yeah.
And we are dying to talk about it because it is just getting better and better the more we're learning about this movie. So let's jump into it. First, we want to thank the listeners that bring the show to you. Those are our patrons. Patreon.com/SuperTalk is how you become a member. If you want to join the patronship, just join. It really helps us out. Support the show directly. Patreon.com/SuperTalk is how you become a member and support us directly. Let's jump right into the review section because we do have some reviews left over from our last show. Since our last show, the finale of Invincible came out on Amazon Prime, episode 8 of season 2. The finale of part 2 came out, and it was a banger.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that's all there is to say about it. It was a banger episode, put a pin in the season, and really set up season 3.
No question. It set up season 3. And what I loved about this episode is it really was it really was a pinnacle in Mark's growth as a part human, part Vegemite. You like that?
Vegemite. I like that.
Vegemite. But the mental angst that he's going through because of this episode was tremendous. And for a cartoon, it's not half bad,
Well, I mean, look, the voice acting is top notch.
Yeah.
I mean, we've said that before. The voice acting is top notch. They've got great actors doing the voice acting for this program, which absolutely helps. The animation is good. It's not like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like that, but it's good enough. And they just, again, great writing, great storytelling.
Yeah, that's the key. Great storytelling, great writing. And not to spoil it for anybody, but season 3, we already know season 3 is greenlit, and season 4 and 5 have also been greenlit.
So they were greenlit for season 3 after season 1. So they gave them 2 more seasons guaranteed after the success of season 1. And they've been doing season 3 and 2 together. So Again, we are very hopeful that it will not be another year and a half, 2 years before we get season 3. We believe we should probably get it around the same time next year, late kind of November, December timeframe next year. Hopefully that comes out, within the end of this year.
Yeah.
That'd be great. But yeah, for them to get 2 more seasons, look, they've got plenty of material. They're probably, I'd say, not even halfway through the comic book run right now with the rest of the story they have to tell. And they've got plenty to tell.
Sure.
And they have been intermingling some of the things that even weren't in the comic books, which is great.
How great is Alan the Alien? Man, I love that.
Fantastic.
I love that character.
Yeah. And just fantastic character. But this particular episode really was kind of a, I don't want to spoil too much, but it was a culmination of
spoil it. We'll make an announcement. We got spoilers. Come on.
Well, no, I don't want to spoil future stuff that could happen.
Do not spoil future stuff.
Right.
You can spoil this episode.
No. This episode I'm going to spoil. I'm talking about stuff that could happen in the future. But this was a kind of the culmination of the Angstrom Levy storyline that we got a little bit of that in the first part of season 2. They kind of set this up, and eventually this now came to a head at this episode. And we saw in first part of I think the finale for part 1, episode 4, Angstrom Levy, guy who can transport himself between universes, was basically going between the universes and trying to find, universes where Mark was defeated and Omni-Man were defeated, and trying to figure out ways to defeat them.
And he built with the twins, he built this machine to gain all of the knowledge of all the Angstrom Levys throughout the multiverse.
So he could know how to defeat them.
Right.
But he happened to live in our universe, or this universe, the one he lived in. Mark was good, and he wasn't sure how or why he became good. And all the other universes, Invincible ended up, siding with Omni-Man and basically, running roughshod over Earth. But there was a accident in the lab that caused him to be deformed and kind of go a little crazy. And now he's back, and he was out for blood. He wanted to kill Mark, and he shows up at Mark's home and takes Debbie and Mark's baby brother, Oliver, right?
Yeah,
Oliver hostage. Mark shows up, and he's like, he's not pulling punches with Debbie and Oliver. He's throwing Oliver around. He breaks Debbie's arm. I mean, he was being brutal.
Yeah.
And, every
He's
time
got
Mark,
some kind of power now, some strength.
well, we don't learn that until a little bit later,
Yeah.
but Mark keeps trying to intervene and help his mom and brother. And Angstrom keeps throwing him into these alternate universes.
Just toying with him.
It's just toying. And he ends up having to fight for a little bit. And then he comes back. And then he has to fight for a little bit. Comes back. That was kind of crazy. Eventually, Mark does get a hold of him. And then they end up kind of fighting each other through the multiverse, right?
Yeah.
They keep bouncing between different universes.
Which was cool, because one of the universes that he was in, he is on this rooftop confronting Batman. So you dress as a bat, and your name is Batman.
You
right?
dress as a bat, and your name doesn't seem too creative.
Yeah, very lazy.
Yeah,
That's
very
what he
lazy.
said, yeah.
And then he was in a universe where there was like a
Spiderling.
as Spider-Man version of Spider-Man as you can get without the copyright infringement.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But they end up fighting through these different universes, and eventually, Mark does kind of get the upper hand, and we find out to what you said, Titanium. Angstrom had not only had some work done, but he had kind of gained some strength, so that it wasn't as one-sided physically as you might have thought it would be. Yeah. But Mark did gain the upper hand, and frankly, his rage kind of took over, and he beat
a little bit of Omni-Man in him, huh?
Beat the living crap out of Angstrom Levy.
He beat him to death, right? Or as far as we know.
As far as we know, he beat him.
Let's Mark like that.
As far as Mark knows, he beat Angstrom Levy to death, and was lying on the ground in a bloody pulp of humanity. And Mark was devastated. So 2 things happened. 1, emotionally, he's devastated. 2, he's now trapped on this wasteland of a universe that he has no idea where he is, and he has no way to get out, no way to leave.
Right.
So he's stranded on this wasteland because he beat, Angstrom Levy to a pulp. Eventually, the future version of the Guardians of the Globe come to rescue him.
Right.
And come to find out it had been like 40 years or something. And they're like, we were able to get enough technology together to figure out a way to traverse the multiverse, and we ended up finding you. And so now we're going to send you back. And one interesting thing that happened is that there was an older version of Adam Eve there, probably in her 50s, 60s at that time. And she says to Mark before he gets sent back through the portal, she's like, "I've loved you my whole life, and I never said anything to you. Please don't let this opportunity go by."
Yeah.
We should,
basically either tell me how you feel,
right,
or tell me that you're not interested and let me move on. So huge weight on him now.
Right.
Huge pressure after he's already battling his inner demons. Am I like my father?
He feels like he's turning into his father.
He feels like, and he's just beside himself for killing Angstrom Levy,
because he's never killed anybody before. Right? He's always held back in every one of his battles. Right.
Really good struggle between that character that he's going through, and I think that's what's so appealing about this show.
And if you remember when Omni-Man and Mark were fighting the Viltrumites on the other planet, Omni-Man kept trying to tell him, Mark, you need to stop holding back. You're
Yeah.
going to get killed if you don't stop holding back. And
Right.
Mark always holds back a little bit. He
Right.
doesn't want to kill
He
anybody.
doesn't want to kill anybody.
And so this really tore him up inside. And he eventually comes back, finds Adam Eve. They're on top of a bridge or a building or something, and they're sitting there, and he kind of reaches out to her to grab her hand, but he doesn't. He kind of hesitates. And so there's not really telling too many secrets. They have a long relationship in the comic books. And so this is going to happen eventually. It's just a matter of time, but it's definitely hard for him right now.
Right.
And it's a tough time.
It's a lot for him to go through.
And the post credit scene was, again, really just a setup for season 3. We do see that Alan the alien had been taken captive and was being walked through
on purpose.
the Viltrumite ship where Omni-Man is being held. And we find out that Omni-Man is basically going to be executed. And they were like setting him up for his execution. And they walk past each other. And of course, Alan speaks with telepathy, so he doesn't need to move his mouth, so they can't see what they're talking about. And he's like, "You remember me? Remember me? We need to get out of here." And the thing that Omni-Man says at the end says to him is like, he's like, "I think I miss my wife."
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, the humanization of Omni-Man is happening, and the redemption arc is really starting. And then we can tell that they're really setting up kind of this prison break and Omni-Man reuniting with his son back on Earth and everything else. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, it was a great ending. It's a good show. I like it.
It's a great show. I mean,
I'm gonna say this again, and I know a lot of people that listen know this about Titanium, is that there's different categories for me. When it's animation, it's kind of leveled off a little bit as far as
your expectations are a lot lower.
Yeah, a lot lower, and the rating for animation, even Spider-Man in the
Across the Spider-Verse,
into
the
Spider-Verse, the Miles Morales stuff, it can only get so high on my list
because it's animated.
And as far as animation is concerned, this is up there.
Well, and one of the things that I enjoy about it is we've seen some stinker live action stuff, both television series and movies. And it's so much more difficult to pull those off because they're live action. Like special effects have to be on point. Your VFX have to be on point. Your stunts have to be on point. The action sequences and the acting. Even the stories have to be are critical. Even if you have a good story with terrible special effects, it's not going to be good.
But
they don't have those limitations.
You're right.
In animation, they can make the action look whatever they want to.
Correct.
They don't have depend on these VFX studios to make things work. They can just draw it, which is great. They don't have those limitations, which we've seen again in the X-Men 97 show, which we'll talk about here in a second. I mean, they just don't have those limitations, So, but Invincible's up there in regard to animated content that we've been watching, and we can't wait for the next season. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Again, Amazon just keeps hitting it out of the park. I mean, they just are hit after hit after hit. They're just doing great, and their comic book media is just fantastic.
And I think I've asked you this before, so I won't ask you it again. I know your answer is going to be X-Men 97. You like that more than Invincible. Obviously, you're a huge X-Men fan, but this ranks up there, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, look, part of the X-Men, the reason I like it so much is the nostalgia of the original series and kind of coming back to it with the same characters, a lot of the same voice actors. Stories that I grew up reading, there's a lot of nostalgia there. I don't have that history with Invincible, but Invincible's up there in regards to, me enjoying the series. Absolutely. I mean, it's been great. All right, well, let's move on. We do have only 4 episodes of X-Men 97 to talk about since our last show. The first one was kind of like a dual episode. It was the Motendo Life Death edition, and we kind of at least figured that this was going to be a Mojo episode, and really centered around Jubilee. Sunspot was in it as well, but really didn't see much of Sunspot and his powers in the episode. But this was really kind of we
haven't seen much of Sunspot at all in any episode in his powers yet,
right? But this is really around Jubilee and fighting against, she's sucked into a video game by Mojo. Sunspot and her are sucked into a video game by Mojo, and they have to fight their way through these different levels. And it's really about her kind of gaining confidence and becoming the X-Man that she wants to be. She actually meets her future self, which is kind of cool, and is able to see how her powers could be used if she learned to master them, which was really interesting and neat. And again, Mojo is just great character. Comic relief off the charts. He was, he starts the episode out really thin because ratings are down, but then when the ratings come up, he gets fat again. He's just such a funny character. But that was the first part of the episode. The second part was, as we kind of alluded to, directly taken from the comic books. It's really Storm dealing with the loss of her powers, living with Forge out in the wilderness, their relationship fostering. She does find out that he's not only responsible for her losing her powers, but
created the weapon that did it.
Well, created the collars that are used to take away the powers of mutants. He's the one who invented them. And, his thought process was, well, I kind of came up with the original design because, there are some bad mutants out there and I wanted to help people stop them. Never thought that they would be used on good people. And, and then come to find out the weapon that was used against Storm was based on that technology. And she was pretty pissed off about it. But at the end of this episode, we really find out who is somewhat really behind the loss of her powers. He does end up creating a machine that's supposed to give her powers back. It doesn't work. And we find out there's this spiritual entity called the Adversary that really has a long history in the Cheyenne lore that, Forge is a Cheyenne Indian. He's a shaman for the Cheyenne Indians. And the Adversary has always been something he's fought against his entire life. But the Adversary feeds on fear and despair and things like that, and the Adversary comes after Storm, and we kind of get a cliffhanger ending to that episode. But it was a really good episode, and they did have a second part to it, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I really enjoyed that part of it. The next episode was a huge banger called "Remember It," and this was really the whole episode took place in Genosha. The island nation of Genosha, where mutants live freely, and they're being admitted to the UN. And so a lot of old X-Men are there. There's X Factor members. There's so many Easter eggs in this episode of different characters that have been in the comic books.
Yeah.
But Magneto is basically been asked to be the kind of the de facto ruler of Genosha and
the president,
or emperor, or whatever they want to call him. We find out there's this inner council that includes some members of the Hellfire Club and Maury McTaggart's there and everything. I mean, it's really crazy. But, I mean, the real cliffhanger to this episode, I mean, the big meat and potatoes of it, a couple of things. Cable shows up, and Madeline Pryor is there, as a matter of fact. And Cable shows up and warns people that he's coming. We're like, who's coming? And then he, disappears again, in time.
He says, I'm too late. Yeah.
Yeah, and then says something to Madeline. Basically, says,
I'm sorry, mom.
Sorry, mom, or something like that. It was really kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But what happens is Master Mold and this huge 3-headed version of Master Mold, who's the Master Sentinel that they fought in the first episode of the season, attacked Genosha, killed millions of mutants. Looked like it killed Magneto and definitely killed Gambit. He sacrificed himself to destroy Master Mold, kind of went up to Master Mold and Master Mold kind of stabbed him through his body with a piece of metal, and then he energized it and blew Master Mold up. Yeah. But he's dead. As far as we know, he's dead. But you're never truly really dead in the comics,
no.
Right? So
but what an episode. It lit social media on fire.
And
everybody was talking about it.
Were off the
charts. Great. The fighting. That's actually the scene where Gambit energizes the claws of Wolverine, right?
No, that was in the first episode.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. But what a huge episode when he dies. I mean, social media was going nuts. People were beside themselves.
They killed off Gambit. Yeah. And
I can't believe
there was
Magneto and all the others.
There was a lot of tension between Magneto and Rogue and Gambit. Obviously, Magneto can touch Rogue, and she ended up kissing him in the episode. Basically, he had asked her to be his queen, or whatever, Empress or whatever you want to call it. She
Bit of a love triangle between
she declined because she was really in love with Gambit and she didn't want to be with Magneto.
Right.
And then that's when Master Mold attacked, and it was a huge battle, and Gambit died, and we're like, holy crap. Like at the end of the episode, I was like, I texted you, I'm like, have you seen it yet? And you're like, no, I'm watching it tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God, you know, so it was kind of crazy. The next episode was Life Death Part 2.
Wait,
go ahead.
Professor, before we jump on Professor, that's the type of story writing that gets people involved emotionally and gets people wanting to see the next episode.
Yeah.
That's what I think, my opinion, that's what Quantumanium was missing.
Right.
And did you hear that oh my God, Hank Pym, the actor that plays Hank Pym,
Paul Rudd? No,
the older guy, not Paul Rudd.
How are we spacing on this?
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
The actor that plays
and everybody that's listening and watching, you're yelling it to yourself right now.
Obviously.
Right? Exactly.
Said, I asked Marvel to kill me off. He thought it was the right time, the right movie. And
in which movie?
In Quantumanium.
Quantumanium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wanted them to kill Hank Pym off in that movie. And I think that's what that movie was missing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know, it's you know, look, we talk about story writing. And the one thing I like about this series, and this goes back to the original version of the animated series, is they drew their stories directly from the comic books, directly. And even these stories this season are pulled directly from the comics. Now, they've taken some liberties and changed a few things, and I think for a couple of reasons. One, to modernize the stories a little bit, but also to make them flow a little bit better, right? We talked about last episode the differences in the Goblin Queen, Madeline Pryor storyline, but, you know, they took some liberties there, but it was similar. In this particular instance of this episode, it was, as a matter of fact, Cassandra Nova who sent the Master Mold to Genosha to kill millions of mutants, which we'll talk about Cassandra Nova when we talk about the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. It wasn't, it come to find out it wasn't who we thought it was. And at the end of this particular episode, we found out that Bolivar Trask gave his DNA to Mr. Sinister so that he could set Master Mold loose on Genosha. So it was Sinister that was responsible for this one in this episode. Again, not exactly what happened, but that's fine. I mean, I love the story. It's great. Great characters and great story.
Michael
Douglas,
my man. The professor always comes through. Thank you, sir.
Michael Douglas. Yeah.
Michael Douglas.
So the next episode was Life Death Part 2, and a surprise to this, we thought it was just going to be the continuation from the Life Death storyline with Storm and Forge, which it was. We did have part of the episode. They flopped back and forth a couple times in the episode. There was the continuation of that storyline of Storm basically coming to grips with the fear she has and what she needs to do to overcome this adversary. You know, Forge uses some of his magical, shaman powers to kind of temporarily get rid of the adversary, but it comes back. But, Storm really needs to kind of embrace who she is and really finds out that it was her inner doubts that were holding her back from using her powers again, not any technology or anything that happened to her. And she ends up getting her powers back, which was fantastic. I mean, we love Storm. Storm's awesome.
She changed. Like when she got her powers back,
she actually went back to her original costume from Giant Size X-Men when she debuted on the X-Men team, with the big, long, flowing white hair and the flowy, black cape. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. And so we think she's coming back at some point in time. She hasn't yet, but we hope she does.
Great character Storm is. And I put this out on social media. I put it out on social media and said, and tell us what you think in the comments. Would you rather Marvel develop Miss Marvel as a lead moving forward, as someone to head Marvel's MCU as a lead character, as a lead mutant
or lead female character, right?
Or would you rather see them develop Storm as a lead in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Look, I've said this before, Titanium, and I think Marvel's hands were tied to some extent. They didn't have access to the X-Men fully. We don't really understand the contract situation. We hear that there were limitations on which characters they could use, and the actors that had been cast in those roles had to be used up to a certain point, I think 2025 or whatever it might be. And that's some of the limitations they've had. I've said this all along. Some of the best strongest female superhero characters that Marvel has are on the X-Men.
No question.
And they just didn't have access to those characters. So they were forced to go with a Captain Marvel. They were forced to go with a Ms. Marvel because they just didn't have access to those. They already had used one in Black Widow. They didn't have access, and Scarlet Witch, obviously they used those two, but they didn't have access to all the others.
Yeah.
The X-Men have a ton of them. And I do hope that once those characters do see some more screen time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that we'll see how powerful and strong those female characers can be.
Yeah,
right?
awesome.
Yeah.
I just think, I mean, as far as
it's a no-brainer question.
It's a no-brainer question. I know.
I mean, if anybody in social media thinks it's another way, please let us know. But I think that's a no-brainer answer there. But anyway, the second part of this episode that was kind of hidden from us in the title was really about Professor X. Professor Xavier is living on the Shi'ar homeworld with Lilandra. They're in love. She comes out and announces that he's going to be her emperor, and they're going to get married. And, find out he's wearing this exoskeleton and he can walk with the exoskeleton. And of course, the locals are not really happy about this. They feel like he's manipulating her and all this other stuff. And great.
They don't like the fact that he's from Earth.
Right. And he's torn because he's happy with her. He's happy living with her. They have a great relationship, but he misses his X-Men. He's, worried about them. He's like wondering if there's any chance that she'll come back to Earth with him. And that was a big part of the storyline. Eventually, Deathbird kind of, who's Lilandra's sister, great character as well, but she ends up, kind of questioning this whole thing and wants to take the throne for herself. And I love the Squadron Supreme, the
Gladiator.
The Gladiator
Oh,
is just a great character. He's a great character.
He's a great character.
But the fight scenes were great, and eventually Professor Xavier forgets. He's like, wait a minute, I'm the most powerful telepath out there. He's like, I'm gonna hold class, and he basically takes control of everybody's minds and teaches them that while they are an empire, they've thwarted, they've basically dominated, controlled these other worlds and made them subvertive instead of assimilating them into their society. And so they're never going to truly, give them the benefits that society might be able to bring to them, because they're just basically conquering this world.
Yeah.
But then he gets this amazing, crazy scene where he sees Gambit dead. And he, gets kind of, something hits his brain and he's like, I'm going back to Earth.
Yeah.
I got to leave. I got to go back to my X-Men. My X-Men need me. I got to go back.
Yeah.
And basically that's the end of it. He's leaving. So, and I assume he's going to be coming back sometime soon. So, that was that episode. So that was great. And then, the last episode that just came out yesterday or this morning, I'm sorry, Bright Eyes, really is Rogue kind of on a rampage. She's pretty pissed off that Gambit got killed. They'd had a funeral for Gambit. Rogue wasn't even there. She was so distraught.
Yeah.
And so she goes on a rampage looking for Gyrick and Bolivar Trask, basically hunting them down. So you need some great cameos in this episode. We had a cameo of General Ross. Cameo when she was attacking some military base, and he's like,
you guys do understand that this facility was built to hold the Hulk, right?
And she just breaks straight in and puts him up against the wall. And again, Thaddeus Ross is right there in this episode. And then she goes up north and ends up running into Captain America, who's in this episode. And we come to find out that they've located Trask, or Gyrick. They located Gyrick. He's being relocated to Mexico City, and he's got a team together that's going to go pick him up. And she's like, no, we're not waiting for that. Yeah. Tosses his shield like hundreds of miles away and then goes down there and gets him. And she finds out where Trask is hiding out. Trask is in some facility. The X-Men all go there to confront him. Find out that he's been working with Mr. Sinister, who's been lending his expertise to him so that they could, kind of, I'll say, make more advanced Sentinels or versions of Sentinels, or use biomechanics for Sentinels. Come to find out that he had been converted, that Trask had been converted into a Sentinel, a humanoid Sentinel. And the X-Men have to fight him. Cable comes back to basically stop him and says, look, you guys are looking in the wrong direction. Trask is just a minor part of this.
Yeah, he's the puppet.
He's
right?
the puppet. There's something bigger, and unless you guys stop it, we're going to be in a world of hurt. We always felt that. So Sinister, the reason why Sinister did what he did with baby Nathan and, sent him back in time and all the other things was because a lot of powers that Sinister got were from Apocalypse. But he'd always kind of been under Apocalypse's thumb, and he wanted to get from under it. And he thought that a baby created by Scott Summers and Jean Grey could possibly stop Apocalypse.
Right.
But we feel that Apocalypse is pulling all the strings, but the real ending to this episode that was I think some of us saw this coming, was the revelation that Bastion is the one behind everything. And Bastion is a character straight from the comic books. He is the humanoid combination of Master Mold and Nimrod. So Nimrod was a version of the Sentinel from the future who was able to travel back in time and tried to kill the X-Men before they became a threat in the future. He's from Bishop's timeline, so that's where he's from. But the Bastion is the humanoid kind of merge between Master Mold and Nimrod, and he is now pulling the strings. We find out he tells Sinister that Professor X is still alive and he's coming back to Earth. And we also find out that Magneto is alive and Bastion's basically got him captive and he's holding on to him. So
wow.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, really cool.
Great episode.
And again,
how many more we have?
So that was episode 7. I believe there's 10. Is there 10 total?
I believe so.
Yeah, 8, 9, 10. So we got 3 more to go. Cool. Yeah. And they're going to all be bangers, I'm sure. So again, that great animation, great voice acting, great storytelling, pulling directly from stories from the comic books. Again, I brought like 5 different comics tonight to show, and we chose this one for obvious reasons. Let's move into our topic of the week. Oh, before we do, I do want to talk about a couple of new news items. I didn't want to go through too much of it tonight because we had so much to talk about, but a couple of things since our last episode that I know you've been dying to talk about. One, Julia Garner was cast to play the Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four movie. This is an announcement that came out a couple of weeks ago. She's from Ozark, right? Is that where she was on?
She was from that movie about that con artist too. It was really good. That did very well. But yeah, she is the blonde girl from Ozark, who was unbelievable.
Yeah, and so she's been cast to play Silver Surfer. Now it is not the Silver Surfer we know. It's Shala Bal. So Shala Bal in the comic books is the wife of Norrin Rad on his home planet.
Right.
And he ends up becoming the Silver Surfer and becoming the Herald of Galactus to save her and his planet. So that's kind of who she is. In an alternate universe, an alternate dimension, alternate version of the universe, she's the one who becomes Silver Surfer to save her planet and not him.
Right.
And so that's the version of the Silver Surfer that she's going to be playing in this movie. And I know you had a lot of questions about this. My thought behind it is I love it. And here's the reason why. If the rumors are true and what we're being told about this movie, we don't know any details yet. We haven't seen a trailer, nothing official from Marvel, but there's a lot of insiders that have kind of pulled some things around. They kind of have a feeling of what this movie is going to be about. We know it's going to be a period piece. It's going to take place in the 60s, like the 1960s era. It's going to take place in the 60s because of the Life magazine cover that was on the teaser for the team and everything else. We've been told it's going to take place in an alternate universe.
Mm-hmm.
And that at the end of the movie, somehow, some way, the Fantastic Four will come into the main MCU universe. We don't know how that happens, why that happens, or whatever, but that's what we've been told. And that's how the Fantastic Four make their way into the MCU.
The 60s type style, the retro type style of city has been depicted in a lot of the posters, and that's as well as the insiders are saying that's what that is all about. That the 60s style is like George Jetson type movie in the background of that type of technology, but that retro style feel is this universe, and that's where most of the storyline will be.
Yeah, and again, I think it's great that they're using this version of it. We believe Galactus and Silver Surfer will be part of this movie. And I love the fact that they can burn a version of the Silver Surfer from an alternate universe that'll never be used again because this universe will die or the Fantastic Four will come to the MCU or whatever it is. And if they want to use the Norrin Rad version of the Silver Surfer, they can, and they don't have to explain how that version got from that universe to this one, right? So
I get that. I'm okay with that, but there is also a rumor that there will be Norrin Rad will be seen in this movie in some aspect or some way, shape, or form.
Well, it would make sense if it's an alternate universe that
he would
when
be,
she becomes a Silver Surfer, he's the husband who, and she takes.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but it's not the Norrin Rad Silver Surfer in this movie.
My only problem with this is great actress. I think they nailed the actress, and their casting is still on point.
If they made a female version of the Silver Surfer that was going to be the Silver Surfer in the MCU,
Huge problem.
Huge problem. But I don't think that's what they're doing.
Okay. Now, if you don't think that's what they're doing, great, and that's awesome. But when you have the OG, the Silver Surfer that's widely popular, and arguably
one of the most popular comic book characters in Marvel's history,
like 3 or 4 notches down from Spider-Man. That's how popular.
I mean, I would put him in my top 10.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Silver Surfer. So why would you hold back and bench him, put him on the bench when you have that character in your quill? I get what you're saying. Bring in a disposable type character to introduce him in an aspect. Maybe he's not the Silver Surfer, but Norrin Rad is in this.
Maybe the actor that plays Norrin Rad in the movie ends up becoming the Silver Surfer in the MCU.
In the other universe.
Here will be the tell. If the actor playing the version of Norrin Rad in this movie that doesn't become the Silver Surfer is somewhat of a well-known actor, chances are that's what they're doing.
Agreed.
If it's somebody that we've never seen or never heard before or just, don't recognize from Adam, I would say probably not. But say they cast, I don't know, Ryan Gosling as Norrin Rad.
Mm-hmm.
And that he makes a cameo in the Fantastic Four movie as Norrin Rad.
Right.
I would bet that that's what he's playing in the main MCU.
That would be great. Yeah. That would be great.
I'm not saying he needs to be that big of an actor, but it could be something like that.
I was blasting social media about why would you bench the OG? Why would you bench Norrin Rad? Why would you bench him and people came back at me and said, well, they've already done that. I said, I get that.
Fox did that.
But we've already done the Fantastic Four, yet they're bringing those back in. This is a different era. This is a different MCU. Why would you bench that such a popular character, especially when Marvel at this time needs that kickstart? They need popular characters. Even Bob Iger said, we're going to focus on our most popular characters moving forward to get that fringe audience. Now, of course, comic book geeks like me and you, this doesn't really hit us, but they need that fringe audience. They need those popular characters.
Again, I'm going to look, I think this Fantastic Four movie is going to do well, regardless of who they cast in these roles. I mean, it's very highly anticipated, and Pedro Pascal's on fire, and he's going to do a great job with the character. And all
more anticipated than Deadpool Wolverine, you think?
Oh no,
no,
because it's 2025. I think, but 2025 it will be the most highly anticipated movie of 2025 for sure. But
as many views as this trailer got.
Yeah, no,
their trailer.
But if look, when this happens, if this ends up being the Silver Surfer that we have in the MCU going forward, I will be as disappointed as you and everybody else.
Right.
I don't think that's what they're doing here, and I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt, so we'll have to just wait and see.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah. The other piece of news that so they had CinemaCon a couple weeks ago, and this is really a event that they hold for all the theater owners around the country. And Marvel had a session there at CinemaCon, and they did show some scenes from Deadpool and Wolverine there. Now, this is before we got the trailer this week. So, we hadn't seen anything since the Super Bowl. So that was kind of a big deal. But we saw most of, what we heard about from CinemaCon in this trailer. The other piece of news from CinemaCon from Marvel was they did show some scenes from Captain America 4, specifically some scenes with Thunderbolt Ross and Bucky, or not Bucky, Captain America, the
Anthony
Mackie version of Captain America, in the White House. Some music is playing, and Eli Bradley ends up getting like mind control,
psychoed out, and attacked
music, and And so they did show some scenes. I think
I'm kind of fired up that Eli Bradley's in that. This is going to be kind of cool.
I think we're going to get a trailer for that movie, at least a teaser trailer for that movie, definitely by Comic-Con.
Oh,
I think they're going to be promoting the heck out of that movie at Comic-Con. But I do think we'll get a trailer for that movie, probably with Deadpool and Wolverine, which is right before Comic-Con.
Professor, I need a favor. I need you to talk me off the ledge on this movie. I'm not excited about this movie. I think basically they reshot half the movie. They rewrote
took a lot of stuff out.
They took a tremendous.
Remember, we're gonna have the little Serpent Society in there, and then from all that here, that's gone. They cut all those action sequences.
Yeah, I think there's like Rattlesnake or something. There is still, but they cut all that out. I am on a ledge about this movie. I'm not excited. I've said it before. Love Anthony Mackie. I'm happy that he's going to be Cap moving forward, but he cannot hold a blockbuster like this by himself.
I have to wait and see what else we learn about this movie. The fact that they did so many rewrites and reshoots tells me they were not happy with the original product.
Yeah.
And what they've said is, we're not releasing stuff just for the sake of releasing it. Yeah. We're going to release it when it's ready. So they went back. Not only did they reshoot a bunch of stuff, but they changed the release date and everything else to give this movie more time. I think by the time we get a trailer, hopefully with Deadpool and Wolverine in July, and we'll see some more, maybe get some more information about the plot of the movie at Comic-Con.
Hope so.
I'm waiting for that.
Me too.
And if it's something that is not very exciting, I'm with you. I'm concerned, but I'm kind of waiting to learn more. I don't know enough to be concerned. Right?
Well, we do know we're going to get the Red Hulk in this.
Possibly.
And I did see something on the dark web about the Red Hulk.
Are you on the dark web again?
I know. I need help.
You know, this is a guy who goes dark. He goes dark before a movie comes out because he doesn't want too many spoilers to be released. But then he's searching around on the dark web
by accident.
Oh yeah, by accident. Yeah, accidentally searching on the dark.
Damn McDonald's toys. I won't spoil it, but hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that, you know,
Red Hulk has a mustache. I'll go ahead and say that Red Hulk has a mustache.
It would be logical that maybe they end the movie with the Red Hulk showing up somehow, somewhere, some way. And we believe the Red Hulk is going to be also in Thunderbolts movie, which is coming out in 2025 as well. So, yeah, again, I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with this movie.
Me too. But between you and me, not excited about this movie. I'm on the ledge about it after all the stories about the reshoots and rewriting basically half the script.
Well, we don't know. I mean, these are the things I don't think it can be an Anthony Mackie movie alone. We know that the new version of Falcon is in this movie. That's the only other hero.
Ramirez, I think.
Reyes, or isn't it Reyes? Jaime Reyes? No,
Reyes that's Blue. That's Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetle.
Ramirez. I think the actor's name is Ramirez.
But we know that he's in this movie.
Yeah.
Right. I have a hard time believing there's not more
Avenger
level characters in this
movie. There's going to have to be.
Right.
I mean,
so
even Falcon and Winter Soldier, Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier himself, kind of carried a lot of the weight of that. He was very good. And then you throw in Zemo.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that there's more Avengers characters in this movie than we know about right now. And that's kind of what I'm waiting to see.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait. And what if it's Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk? We'll just be so excited.
Jeez. I'm telling you, I need more about this because I am, and hopefully at Comic-Con we'll get a lot more.
Yeah, we will. I'm sure we will. All right, let's get into our topic of the week this week, which is why we're here, brought to us by our friends at Studio GG Studios, home of the Man Band, Corner of the Cob, and that is our review of the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer that came out this weekend.
Wow, what a banger.
I mean, look, the Super Bowl trailer was good, and it was exactly what it was. It was a teaser. Yeah. It was a teaser to kind of whet our appetite about what this movie could be. This was a real trailer that gave us way more insight into the movie itself. Look, and everybody thought that this was a Deadpool movie. It's not.
What a great comic you got, too. Deadpool with Wolverine.
Yeah.
What a great comic.
These two, they've had so many run-ins in the comics, which is why this story just makes so much sense. But the movie is called Deadpool and Wolverine, and the first teaser trailer was very focused on Deadpool, very much.
Yeah.
This trailer was focused a lot on Wolverine, and the interactions between the two of them. Obviously, a lot of the breaking the fourth wall, making fun of Disney and Kevin Feige and all the other stuff. I'm sure there's a ton of that in this movie. We've seen enough of it already. But this really focused on Hugh Jackman and
the broken Wolverine that he's playing.
Yeah, we find out that he's playing a version of Wolverine that basically failed his world, right?
Yeah,
the TVA has recruited Deadpool to fix some kind of problem. We don't know what the problem is yet. We'll find out at some point in time. But he goes off to recruit Wolverine, and he finds this version of Wolverine. And gosh, just even the first interaction between the two of them in the bar is just
brilliant,
awesome. Look, lady, I'm not interested. I mean, it's just like, so funny. But the two of them have great chemistry. They're obviously good friends in real life.
Make some kind of comment about his claw performance.
Yeah, he's like, he's like, oh, short, can't get the claws out or something. He's like, oh, yeah, that's typical for Wolverines over 40. Might need a little help. Whiskey claw.
Yeah, whiskey claw. Yeah,
whiskey claw. Yeah. But anyway, we find out that he's recruiting Wolverine, needs his help. Obviously, they disagree. They fight. There's some fight sequences between the two of them. But ultimately, they're working together. Great Easter eggs in this trailer. We do see that the home base of Cassandra Nova, who we believe is the main villain in this movie, is the dead body of Ant-Man in giant form.
Yeah.
She walks out of his skull. The mouth comes open and she walks out of his skull. And there's a ton of the
Easter eggs and
X-Men character villains from the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
We had Lady Deathstrike, we had Azazel, we had Pyro, we had Sabretooth, we had Toad, just everywhere. There's all these villains from all the Fox X-Men movies. She comes walking out. We do get a little bit of idea of, she's got the same powers as Professor X. And I know you had some questions about it, but, she's basically the evil doppelganger of Professor X. And
because I just know her from the comics and that she's deformed, and she's not deformed. She's a smoke show.
Not really deformed in the comics. That's just the way she was drawn. She really doesn't have a lot of deformities in the comics.
Well, she was kind of scary and ugly as shit.
Yeah.
And didn't she they fought in the womb or something? And he
look, it is literally, it is one of so this is Grant Morrison. So Grant Morrison wrote a run on an X-Men comic called The New X-Men.
Yeah, I got him going, people. I got the professor on it.
And so The New X-Men was all Grant Morrison. So Grant Morrison is one of the most prolific comic book writers ever. And he did take a run at the X-Men comics. He's done a ton for DC. I mean, he did like Superman, Man of Tomorrow. I mean, he did like a ton of stuff for DC. Wrote a lot of Batman stories. Great prolific writer for comic books. He created this character, and you're right. The backstory of this character is like, what?
Yeah.
And when she shows up in the comics, you're like, what the hell's going on here? Yes. So this whole concept is she's basically, it's like this Shi'ar prophecy that everybody has an opposite of themselves somewhere in the universe. It's called like the Mumadrai or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but like there's the exact opposite version of you exists somewhere in the universe. Well, it just happened that the two of them coexisted in the womb together, and only because Professor Xavier was a mutant and his powers had manifested in the womb was he able to defeat her. Like, she tried to kill him in the womb,
right?
Because she's the evil version of him, and he was able to defeat her in the womb, and basically she was stillborn, thrown out in the garbage. But then come to find out she survived, and she was like a ball of ooze, and then, get sentience, and then, grew a body and all. It's just crazy stuff. I don't know what they're doing with the character in this movie yet. I don't think that's what they're doing.
Agree.
I think this is the version of Professor X from an alternate universe that just happened to be Cassandra Nova. So say Cassandra Nova was the one that survived birth and not Professor Xavier.
The Cassandra Nova that's evil and wants to kill all mutants.
So say she was successful in killing Professor X in the womb, and she was the one that was born, so she became the Professor X of that universe, and that's what we've got.
Fascinating. I can't wait.
But she's got, telepathy and she's a powerful mutant and everything else. But look, she's obviously a big part of this story. So we're gonna and I think what they're fighting against. And look, there's so many rumors out there, so many rumors about where this movie's going and what happens and who shows up and where they end up and all these other things. Like, you and I can't wait. I mean, this is going to be
huge event.
This is going to be $1 billion movie, people. It is going to be so successful. And
let's not talk rumors. Let's talk what we saw visually.
Yeah,
we saw a sling ring being used, right? We saw a
portal
right?
From some kind of magician, whether it was Doctor Strange or somebody else. Some portal opened and they jumped through it.
Same portal being used. That's interesting.
It wasn't a TVA portal. It was a sling ring portal.
Right.
So they're going somewhere. Where they're going, we don't know.
Yeah.
But they jumped through a portal. What else we saw? We saw the hot rod that was the Red Skull's car in the Captain America movie.
Yeah, jacked up, souped up.
Yeah, and it had an Iron Man hood ornament on it. Yeah. So that's an Easter egg. They had Captain America's motorcycle from the original Captain America movie.
Yeah.
We've seen so many, there's just Easter eggs all over this trailer.
And they're in the void because
we think they are.
Yeah.
We see Eliath.
And
Eliath eating people. And maybe Cassandra Nova has control over Eliath and is using Eliath, and maybe that's how she has so much power in the void or whatever. So we don't know.
Is she trapped in the void? Is she stranded? She only exists in the void?
We don't know.
No.
Interesting.
But man, some of those visuals and this movie and
the fight scenes.
The fight scenes are great.
Oh yeah.
It's just great.
Yeah. Really. I mean, Wolverine stabs him right in the crotch and then Deadpool shoots him in the gut, shoots him in the ribs from behind. And it's just, the fights are going to be fantastic.
I'm really looking forward to this. And the numbers, the views that this trailer got are off the charts. This is going to be huge, and not just for geeks like us and the geekdom out there and the nerdist. This is going to appeal to the novice fans. I'm talking everybody's talking about this movie and they can't wait to. You're bringing in the Ryan Reynolds fans, you're bringing in the Hugh Jackman fans, you're bringing in all the X-Men, love the mutants, can't wait for the mutants. You're bringing all of those guys in. I think this is going to appeal to a lot of people, and I'm pretty excited about it.
I mean, people are going to see this movie for several reasons, because of all that you just mentioned, but also because it's the only movie for Marvel this year, so they're going to go see it. They want to see what happens to these characters in Marvel now that they're part of the MCU, right? So they're kind of interested in that. They want to, see what, and this movie's going to have so much buzz that people are just going to go see it because of the buzz, right?
I mean, another big reason is, does it move the story and the MCU forward?
Right. Secret Wars or whatever.
Does it, all this minutia and all this craziness that has failed, does this give it structure to move forward in a storyline that we can look forward to future movies?
But even if it is what we think it is, kind of like a postage stamp on the end of the Fox universe set of movies,
right,
and a transition into the MCU for a lot of these characters, great.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we want, right?
That's what we want. Excellent. Right. Professor, let's ring the bell. School's over. Thank you for explaining Miss Nova for us.
Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com, or at supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone. Corner of the